Or do we choose to control our emotions? So when I was first married, my husband and I went to Hawaii, and we loved boogie boarding. I'd never had such a fun ride in my life, and so we went to all the beaches. And one of them, we got there, it had this big sign that just said, dangerous shoreline. And I thought, well, I'm not getting in that. I'm not up for danger. My husband's like, come on. So he went out and he took his boogie board out. So I'm peacefully strolling the beach, thinking, I'm safe. And he's not. You know, I may not see him again. And marriage didn't last long. So I'm just strolling along. The water's coming in. And suddenly, the most giant wave in the history of the world came and it hit me like in the side of the head and threw me down this way. And suddenly I was on the ride of my life because that wave took me and shoved me up the shore, and it was so fierce that when I got to the top, it pulled me back down into the water. And 5 times this wave was like, whoa! I was a little emotional because I thought I was going to die. I thought, I'm going to die. And every time it would shove me up, I'd think, oh, I'm going to get free this time. And then it would grab me almost by the ankles and just pull me back down in the water. And I'm like, I'm going to die. And so finally, the wave let me loose at the top of the beach. And I was just like this. I literally had sand 5 inches thick in my crotch. Seriously. So I finally get up. My husband couldn't help me because he's out boogie boarding. I get up and I look out, and there's my husband. Whee! So that day I realized that the waves represented trouble. The trouble, it will come. But it will either knock you down and push you around, or you can get on top of it and ride the very trouble that's trying to tear you apart. So you have it in your notes. The verses are a little squirrely. But John 16:33. So read this again and think about those waves. It says, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the trouble. And as trials come in our life, you know, there's a child of mine that just this week, when she shuts the door of my car, she slams it so hard. And I've said, like, honey, you need to slam the door, shut the door gently and don't slam it so hard. Well, I've told her that like 500 times. So just suddenly one day she slammed it shut and I was like, I'm like, oh, content. Thank you, Lord. And I wanted to just tell her, like, just shut the door gently. I've told you 5,000 times. But I remembered and I stopped myself. Because when we let those trials and those storms and those emotions rage up like the roaring waves, what happens is we end up hurting the people in our path. And I don't want to be like that. If you look at the statistics in our state, I don't know them all, I can't remember them all, but in my metro area, there are like, maybe in my city, there are 27,000 marriage licenses issued a year and 20,000 divorces. There is a murder committed every 40 hours. There is rampant cutting among young girls, self-harm. They cut themselves in the insides of their thigh and on their wrist, and they hide it. They never tell anyone. They do that because they're hurting, because trials are coming at them, and they're not riding them. They're taking them in. And my guess is most of us in this room are doing the same thing. The trials can come. We can have the emotional reaction all day long. But just because it comes at us doesn't mean we have to go with it. You know the drama queen. She's the one that she's like really awesome. She's on cloud nine. It's like everything's great today because all these things happened. But the minute something goes wrong, her kid talks to her crossways, she gets pulled over by a police officer. She just has a bad day. She hasn't had coffee. Then all of a sudden, she's down. And she wants to tell everyone about it. I'm just not having a very good day. She's the one that you go up and say, how are you doing? And you're thinking, oh, I wish I hadn't asked. Do you ever have a good day? Do you ever choose to have a good day? And just what I want you to know, to reiterate what Roxanne said, is that she said, Satan is on a mission to make you feel inadequate. She said that last night. All those trials, his mission is when they come at you, that they overpower you, and they take you from the hand and the love of God, where you start to doubt God, where you start to think so much on the negativity, you think so much on the trial, you think so much on your rights. Well, I have the right to act this way. I have the right to feel this way. I was sexually abused when I was a kid. You start to take up that right, and that is what Satan wants us to do. He wants us to grab hold of those hurts and those wounds, and he wants us to cling to them. He wants us to hold fast to the trials and the circumstances and the storms and pity, and he wants us to get down and just pity ourselves because it's self-consuming. It distracts us from being about God's business and keeps us tied up and distracted. It's consuming. When Roxanne said that last night, she said, Satan's on a mission to make you feel inadequate. And I wrote, because he knows that if you understand that the living God, the living God, lives in you, and that you're not just a sinner anymore. You were a sinner, and you've been saved by grace, and you are now the righteousness of Christ. We have an enemy that doesn't want you to hold fast to that truth. And so when the storms come, we become stormy with it. We're going with it instead of getting on our boogie board and riding it. And that is what we're going to talk about today. Before I go on to the next verse, is that every single time we act out of our emotions, and I'm talking, let's go through the gamut of emotions. Anger, fear. Have you felt angry before? Everybody just raise your hand, okay? Have you felt worry before? Just keep it up because, Have you ever felt inadequate? Okay, Charles Martel and Pepin the Short, when Susan was like, in 1736, I was like, oh, I have a good opportunity to feel like a bad homeschool mom right now because I did not know that, and I just thought, Have you ever felt far from God? Have you ever felt dry? Like you're just so dry. God, I want intimacy with you. Have you ever felt broke? Have you ever looked at someone and you want to give to them so bad, but you're like, I don't have 2 nickels to rub together? And you just have that feeling of like, I'm ashamed. I was abused when I was a kid, and that feeling of shame, it carried with me forever. For years. It took me years to overcome that because the enemy is deceitful, and he gets in there and he takes it and he wants us to hold fast. I love that word. So every single time we have those feelings and we don't learn to give them to God, and then what happens if we strike out of them? Has anybody here yelled at their children? I don't know how you did that today, but that's so funny. I want you to know if you will hold fast to what we're going to learn today and you will practice it. I have not arrived. I asked my husband, I said, hey, can you think of any examples where I've really acted out of my emotions? And he said, I think that's going to be really hard. I said, really? You think I've matured that much? And he's like, no, honey, just yesterday. I was like, really? I just thought he was giving me a compliment. So then I tried to think about getting offended. No. So if you will hold fast to this, it's not about arrival. It's about starting. It's about beginning. It's about drawing a line in the sand and say, you know what? I'm not going to be Satan's anymore. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to destroy, because every time we act out of our emotions, it costs us something. It may cost you your marriage. You might be one of the 20,000. But I know 150%, I haven't arrived, but I have begun. And I drew you a picture to show you how I do it. And I don't have a copy for some reason, so I might have a hard time. I want you to pull it out while we're, what I want you to do is a little example. I have Play-Doh in the back.